So I know you told this story before, but for people who don't know, you auditioned for the part of Janae, and then were told that you got crazy eyes.
Yes, I went in originally for the role of Janae, who is the track star, played by, and brilliantly, by Vicky Judy on the show. And I had gone into the role with my hair in the bantu knots, and by the way, just so we're really clear about it, the sides and the audition for Janae, it wasn't like a scene where she's acting crazy. Like, it was just a really sort of straightforward scene that I read. I don't know what that says about me, but so we went in, I read, maybe 3.5, 4 weeks later, I got a phone call from my representation, and they said, we have some really good news for you. I said, okay, what is it? And they said, do you remember that audition you went on for Orange is the New Black? I said, yeah, totally. They said, do you remember the part you went on? I said, yes, absolutely. Part of Janae, the track star. Got it. And they're like, well, you didn't get it. And I thought to myself that day, I was like, okay, so agents are now in the business of telling actors when they don't get jobs. Like, we can skip that step. I don't need that. But they said, but they would like to offer you another part. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, okay, cool, great. This is amazing, yes. What's the other part? And they said, a character called Crazy Eyes. And in my head, I just sat there and I started thinking, like, what in the world could I have ever done that would make someone think, she's not really right for the track star, but, she might really be right for Crazy Eyes. I don't know. To this day, I still don't know. I actually was at work today, true story, talking about it, and I was saying, I should ask Genji, because I haven't somehow built up the courage yet to ask her, to be like, what made you think crazy? But I want to ask her, what is the thing? I will one day, I feel like we'll find the right moment where I can ask what really said that. Yes, she should play Crazy.
So you didn't have to go in for any chemistry reads or any of that jazz?
I didn't go in for her any chemistry reads. I only had that one audition, and I was intrigued, actually, upon learning that I was going to play that part, what this was going to be. But when I did get the script, because Suzanne comes in during episode 2. She's not in the first episode, she comes in the second. When I did read it, I remember immediately, though that was my first experience with the role, the wheels started turning in my brain in terms of ideas and images and thoughts about the playing of this role. And it did, strangely, feel right. It did feel right.
I was going to ask you, how do you find a point of entry into a character who has a name like Crazy Eyes? And, when she first comes into the show, you sort of see her through Piper's eyes a little, and she's like a little bit scary. How do you find, like, this is what makes her a real person?
That's an interesting thing. I think I agree in terms of the seeing of her through Piper's eyes. I thought Genji did this really brilliant thing, introducing a lot of these characters. It almost felt like a funhouse mirror idea of these characters, because the perspective that we're seeing the show shot through is that of Piper's, and this world is so foreign from who she is. We're seeing her idea of who these people are versus who these people are. And so that was a beginning place, a starter for me, with regards to Suzanne. I knew when I was reading the script, I realized this is someone who we're seeing from someone else's strong and solid opinion. And so that's already somewhat askew, sets that idea askew. The key for me, though, to unlocking the character became in this one introductory line. It was a descriptor of her in a stage direction that said that she was, and I'm describing it in part as she was innocent like a child, except children aren't scary. And I thought that was such, right, like a specific way of identifying another person, that they are innocent like a child. One, two words that I don't necessarily see married with the prison system, innocent or child, you know, when we're talking about the inmates. So that immediately set a light off in my head. This is a very specific wording here. And so this is not an everyday, you know, qualifier for how we see people within the prison walls. So that really set something off on me, and except children aren't scary. And so that little follow-up said there's another layer on it for me. So when I started to read the script and saw how she was interacting with Piper, it sort of took some of, I felt it important to take some of that scariness off of her, because I thought maybe perhaps that this is how she is perceived versus who she is. And let's kind of hang our hat on the innocent like a child thing, where that really felt to me like, oh, well, if somebody's innocent like a child doesn't purposely come in to be malicious, doesn't maliciously come into a room to destroy it when they take out all their toys. All they want to do is play with their toys. You know, they're trying to get to the bear at the bottom of the trunk, so they got to tear out the truck and the Barbies and the Legos and the Uno cards and the, you know, and the Cabbage Patch and the Barbie Dream House and the Nintendo. You know what I mean? They're going through all these things, and then there's a mess. But we're really just trying to get to the teddy bear, right? So that changes the behavior, the intention of the behavior. It's not that. So then I started to feel her heart was bigger than really all she wants to do is love. So then this is a love story that we're telling.
You had this wonderful quote where you said that Suzanne was the only character on the show or in the prison who didn't underestimate herself. And that's sort of not what you would think of her having met her. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I never have felt that Suzanne underestimates herself. I think despite her sensitivities to being called, say, crazy eyes, you know, who wants to be called that? She still is a person with feelings. But I don't think she underestimates herself or even stops to consider maybe how someone else going back to this word of perception, how someone else perceives her, because, she displays that through little things. One, her knots in her hair. No one else is wearing knots in their hair, you know? But she is committed to that look and feels satisfied by it, stands strong in it. She has a scene, season 1, I want to say it's episode maybe 7, not 7, maybe 8 or 9, where her parents come to visit her. And her mother is trying to tell her about changing her hair, and she says, no, Mom, I like my hair this way. She's confident in what she says. She stands in her Shakespeare. She stands in her book writing, you know, and won't compromise herself in any real way, and despite falling outside the fold.
What was your reaction when they told you about this erotic fiction storyline? Were you excited?
That I would say, like, that was probably my initial sentiment. I was thinking, erotic space fiction. Like, that's a category upon itself, you know? And when I started to learn more about it, I got excited. Because that's what I think was really exciting about doing the show. In all sincerity, I think the thing that's really exciting to me is that these stories, I'd never seen a story about a woman's journey through drafting an erotic space novel. You know, never seen that before. So I was excited as I started to see that pathway being cut.
And I always think that you must get the scripts all ahead of time, but you get them every week, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Was there anything about Suzanne's backstory that surprised you or made you sort of have to rethink who she was to you?
I think for me, in the beginning, the thing that was most surprising for me was when we were introduced to her parents. When I read that script initially, I mean, it would be a lie if I said that I thought that was what they looked like. And that was who I would be lying. I did not think that they looked like that. And so when I met them, and her parents are white, and that was a shock, number one, for me. But and again, I think Genji does this really beautiful thing of loading things without even saying anything. You know, here you meet these people who do not look like her, so automatically you know these are not her biological parents on first sight. So that is, in itself, creates a story without even telling that story. So she's adopted, or you know, is this a family friend? It spawns a lot of questions immediately, and I thought that was surprising. And I think she consistently and continuously surprises us in new and exciting ways.
This episode in particular that you guys just saw is quite traumatic for Pennsatucky, and as much as the show is funny, it's also a drama. When you have a scene that's particularly difficult, does Genji take you aside beforehand and say, look, this is going to happen to you in this episode? And I know there's so many cast members, like, what is the mood on set? Are you aware that even though you're not in the scene, one person in particular is going through not a very nice scene?
She doesn't take us aside. Well, that's not true. That's not true. On occasion, she does. On occasion. And then it's even deeper when it comes, if it's an episode she happens to have shot, or she's going to see that person later, you know, as the season goes on. She'll email maybe first, and then, you know, if you're in LA, she'll have lunch, or, you know, when she comes to New York, she'll sit with you and sort of just commune for a minute so we can connect and be on the same page emotionally about what's transpiring. But she doesn't, you know, carve out weeks and weeks and days or anything to that effect. When we do have scenes that are more dramatically listed, yeah, it's a different, I would say that the emotional quiet, you know, is different, but the energy is the same, because whether you're playing, if you're playing a scene that takes a lot of energy because it's high drama, or whether it's high comedy, it takes a lot of energy to maintain that, to keep it up. So if it's something that's really traumatic and the space needs to be kept a little quieter, everybody sort of knows how to hold the space in our cast. They know what the energy that needs to exist in the room in order to get the work done. And we do check in, like you said, for example, with Taryn, with that scene, which is amazing in that episode. You really do, like, we would check in if she comes to work, you know, how did it go? Just wanting to make sure we're all on the same page about it.
I didn't realize how many great directors you've had. And I was looking at the list, and you had Jodie Foster and Nicole Holofcener, and Andrew McCarthy. Were you ever like, oh my God, Jodie Foster is there, I can't listen to what she's saying? Like,
yes.
I'm so.
You know, I don't even know if I've ever told this story before, but I'll tell it. If it's weird, I don't know. But Jodie, when I realized, because Jodie now, when she first came to our show, it was my second episode. So I'm barely clearing a hurdle in television at this point. This was my first TV job when I started it, you know what I mean? So I'm like figuring it out. So so when we were getting ready to shoot episode 3, we were still on 2 at the time, but we knew Jodie was doing 3. I was like, oh my gosh, I love Jodie Foster. In my brain, I'm rattling off like projects she's done, you know, Panic Room. I'm just going through a list of her, you know, career. And I was feeling nervous, but as fate would have it, we were, for some reason, because we had a big shoot before we had our, dressing rooms area. This is a quick story, I promise. I'll try to keep it quick. We were going up to these other dressing rooms where we used to get ready for the show. And I'm walking down the hallway, and I'm about to make a right to go into the dressing room area. And in my peripheral view, I can see a woman that my brain registers that I know. And my head first goes like, I think that's my neighbor. I started to turn to be like, why she'd be in a studio, I don't know. But I was like thinking, I think that's my neighbor. And I turn and I immediately turned away because I was like, that's Jodie Foster. I started taking off down the hallway. And she was, because I was so nervous, and all of a sudden I hear behind me, excuse me, excuse me, excuse me. And I turn around and it's Jodie Foster, and she's calling for me. And I was like, yes, can I help you? And she says, are you Crazy Eyes? Because I was dressed in costume, and all. I was like, yes. And she was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited for the episode, we're gonna get to work together. And she couldn't have been more gracious, firstly, just a lovely, gracious woman. And we proceeded to have table work in that hallway while I'm holding my styrofoam takeaway lunch about the character and the episode. And I think I say all this long story to say that we've had all these amazing directors come in who have been nothing but gracious and who've been there from the beginning, knowing that we're all building this thing together. And just so lovely and insightful in terms of story, and put all of our ideas and preconceived notions of who they might be down in the interest of the work.
You began your career in the theater world and in the opera world, right?
Yeah.
What? So I know Orange is the New Black is how you got your SAG card. How did you get your Actors Equity card?
Oh, great question. Thank you for asking. I got my equity card at the People's Light and Theater in Do you know it? Yeah, do you know it? At the People's Light and Theater in Malvern, Pennsylvania, doing an adult version, a very dark version of The Jungle Book. Playing Mowgli. I was Mowgli. It was very intense.
Wow.
Didn't expect that one.
Nope. Was that after you graduated?
Yes, this was when I was living, this is by the time I'm living here in New York, absolutely.
And what made you want to transition from plays and theater to television?
Well, it was sparked by my manager. I was doing a show here in New York at the time, and my manager now, had come to see me in the show and started to represent me after having seen me in the show. And we sat down and we were talking, whatever, about all these different things. And she said to me, have you ever auditioned for film and television or done a pilot season? I said, no. And she couldn't believe I hadn't done one. She's never done a pilot season? I said, no. She's like, do you audition for film and television? I said, not really. And she said to me, I think you should give it a try. I think you might be able to do something in it, and I would like to see you give that a go. And I believed her. I mean, she lived in LA, Los Angeles, so she must know what she's talking about. That was my feeling, honestly. And so I decided to give it a go then. And I did, and she had said, no, we're not going to take any theater offers or any theater auditions, which was really scary at the time because that was how I was working. I was making a living, a meager one, but my living doing it. So I was watching my account just go down like this, and my brother, you know what I'm talking about, watching my nose go up like this, and but I knew as soon as I had started treading down that path that I had actually wanted to do it, and I in all sincerity, realized that I hadn't been pursuing it as aggressively as perhaps I could have been over the past, because I didn't see many living examples that might serve to encourage me to continue that pursuit.
I read that you got quite discouraged when you were auditioning for television before you got Orange is the New Black, and you were thinking of maybe giving up acting. Did you ever consider just returning to doing straight theater, or were you like, I'm done, new career?
Yeah, no, I said I'm done, new career. I didn't think about going back to theater, which is really interesting, because I think sort of what I was just saying, in the going through the experience of auditioning it, I realized that that was something I did want to do, that was a dream of mine, that I had deferred, mainly because of my reason just expressed. So I thought that when I was being told no, I thought, no, this is actually the universe, God telling you that this is not for you. And what you are meant to do is live your life with and on purpose. And you need to go pursue that purpose. And, my family, I'm from Nigeria, first generation. What up, Nigeria? Yes, up, first generations. And so I had as a child, my parents thought I would be a lawyer, and they thought I'd make a good lawyer, because I talk a lot. And so I had decided that, I was going to do that. I was like, I'm going to go, my parents, when I was little, thought I would do that, and that I could do that. And so I was on the train, and I said, if you can make a way for that to happen, for me to go to law school, I will go.
I know a lot of people want to hear about The Wiz. Congratulations about that, by the way.
Thanks, you guys. Thank you.
So how much rehearsal time do you have for something like that?
The rehearsal for The Wiz was 8 weeks altogether, with people coming in at different points over those 8 weeks. But it started, because it's, keeping in mind, I know, when we do theater, we usually rehearse for 4.5 weeks, and then you get, the typical, if you're doing, depending on the production, level of production, you can get 3.5 to 4 more weeks of previews before you open. So you have that 8-week rehearsal time-ish, but with performance typically, But because there is no preview period for The Wiz, and you're also dealing with the technical element of television, there was 8 weeks of rehearsal prescribed for this process, so that you had those solid 4 weeks of, okay, here we are, we're just in the room, we're gonna table work, we're telling the story, we're doing it. Okay, now we satisfied that as artistic people and artistic tribesmen, right? But now we also have to think about and consider this other element of television that's being integrated into this experience, and how does that the movement of the camera, collide with the movement that the actors are trying to do? Can that live in a television world?
How did it come about? Were you approached?
Yeah, I got a phone call. My manager, Lainey, she had said, I have some really great news for you, and I'm going to tell you on Friday. I was like, what? Okay. And so, and then she and my agents called and said that NBC, Craig, Zayden, Neil Marin, and our director, Kenny Leon, they had called to ask if I would like to come and play Dorothy, excuse me, the good Dorothy. No, to play the Good Witch, Galinda.
I know we're running out of time, so I wanted to ask you quickly about American Pastoral.
Oh yeah.
Which is if you don't know, Ewan McGregor's directorial debut, right?
Yes.
What's it like being directed by an actor? I mean, I know you had it with Jodie Foster, but she's been directing for a while now.
Yeah.
What was it like being directed by not only a first-time director, but someone who had been an actor?
It was phenomenal. I absolutely loved working with Ewan. I think Ewan is a brilliant director. First of all, let me even just really say the top. A brilliant human being, one, followed by being a brilliant artist. He is so gifted. You really truly would not have known that that was his first time directing. And he's had obviously 20 plus years of experience within the film world, so he carries that with him. But then also, he is, as an actor, he is very generous and sensitive to his scene partner and castmates, and really giving what you also need, because he's in the movie as well, and that's who I worked with primarily. And so he sensed that sensitivity to the needs of the scene as an act from his acting side. I'm not surprised then that that spills over to how he directs as well. The generosity, how he gives notes to actors, amazing. And they're actual useful notes. Do you know what? They're useful notes, you know?
What's the best note that he gave you?
There was one line, you guys would know, like, when you're talking, he was like, throw that one away. Just throw that one away. Like, don't be so heavy on that. Or, you know what I mean? He's like, can we find something underneath? Can we do it? You know what I mean? Can it be underneath? And yes, thank you. Yes, we can do that. Try it that way. Just keep it, let it be underneath. And that's useful because you understand a different lens to watch and play this through. So I'm not surprised that that then, umbrellas out towards who he is as a director.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Having me. Thanks for having me, you guys.